Well, welcome to Talking Art in Maine. This is our first one of 2019. And what a great crowd. Andrew, who you know is the director of the Lincoln Theater, sends his regrets. He's sick tonight, and I know he was really looking forward to hearing Sam's talk. But he's going to watch the video of it, which reminds me, if you have missed a talk and you would like to see it, you can go to the Lincoln Theater website and just type in Talking Art in Maine, and all of the past ones will pop up. So you can watch them anytime, or if you can't get to one in the future and you want to see it. Well, tonight is my great honor to welcome Sam. I know that's why you're all here. Sam Cady to Talking Art in Maine. Sam is well known across the country for his shaped canvases. Once you have studied his cut-out canvases, as I have, I told him, it's hard to get excited about a plain old rectangular canvas. In Sam's work, sometimes the images are unrecognizable at first and can look even strange. Absent the environmental surroundings, his exact trompe-l'oeil depictions of parts of a whole provide a combination of real and abstract sculptural form that practically floats off the wall. And you know what trompe-l'oeil is. It's trick of the eye. It's very realistic. So they look three-dimensional. And if you go to a show of his and look across the room, you'd swear those were three-dimensional sculptures. And then you get up to them and they're flat. Very, very interesting. He says, quote, "The things I paint have a personal, spiritual, or psychological resonance for me that sometimes doesn't become apparent until the painting is finished," end of quote. In his works, which range from built structures to naturally occurring islands, mountains, and trees, special attention is given to the expression or feelings and ideas by the use of his distinctive style. I think he's a poet who paints. Tonight, he's going to talk about inspiration and struggle. Sam Cady, welcome to Talking Art in Maine.
Thank you.
Sam has asked that you, the audience, participate in this as we go along. We're not going to have a Q&A after the fact. We're going to invite you to just be brave and shout out your questions or your comments. And we won't think you're rude. We want you to do that, because I happen to know that Sam is interested in your experiences and associations that you, the viewer, bring to his work. So please don't be shy.
We're not just going to have them put their hands up, we're going to have them shout?
Well, they can put their hands up. Actually, we can see you, but if we don't see you, don't be shy. Just tell us, over here. Well, Sam, we handed out your bio at the door, but I just want to mention that after you got your master's degree in printmaking from University of Indiana and went to New York, in only 6 years, you were invited to participate in the Whitney Biennial. A huge deal. What was that like?
It was exciting. It was a very good example of networking because I met someone dog walking in the park. This is the beginning of the networking. And they were a very good artist. They liked my work. They were, let's see, how does this go? They were good friends of one of the curators of the biennial. The year that I was in it, you could not have had a one-person show in New York City if you wanted to show in the biennials. In other words, no one who had had a solo show in New York City could be in the biennial. That was a very democratic and really wonderful opportunity. And
they wanted to see new work.
They wanted to see new work.
New talent.
So this dog walking friend was friends with one of the curators. I, at the time, was moving furniture to make money, and I was one man, one van. And that was my thing in the Village Voice, one man, one van. And the curator was moving, so he asked me if I, and I said, sure. But I was showing a few paintings at a realist gallery named Mizell Gallery in Soho. And the Mizell said to me, the Whitney's coming to the gallery, so they'll see your work, so don't worry. And the Whitney never came to the gallery or something. I think they didn't come to the gallery. But anyway, through getting to know the curator, oh yeah, let's see. You're going to have to excuse my memory stuff. So I hadn't applied to get in on time. So I called this fellow that I had moved and said, what do I do? And he said, well, just send your application and your images with my name on it.
Oh.
And I did, and they were interested in what I was doing. So they sent another curator down. They have 3 or 4 curators. And it was very exciting. It was like the painting that they were interested in. It was an 18-foot kind of a sliver of highway. It was the FDR Drive or the East River Drive and at Houston Street. And it was an intersection where Houston Street, which is east and west, came to the river, and then there was the East River Drive, and there was kind of these clover leaves going onto it. And I guess I'm carrying on a little too much here.
That's all right, Sam.
I walked my dogs. I get a lot of opportunities from walking dogs. I walked my dog over in this park, and there was something about this intersection that fascinated me, but I could not figure out what it was. And I think it took me about a year to figure out what it was and what viewpoint I could use. And then it just clicked after like a year of walking over it, around it, looking at it. And so that was an example of kind of like a long study of something.
Sure, yeah.
Take photos and take them back?
I just did drawings, little sketches. What it was a long wall beside the exit road going up to there was an overpass where Houston Street went to the other side of the drive, and then it had a runway that went on to the north section of the drive. But
Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me to do that. She said, did you take photographs, or how did you remember the...
Yeah. I often do take photographs. In fact, many of these images that you'll see are from photographic images, which we can talk about a little bit later. But
I'm going to start right in because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and I want to get to some of these things. This is called Under Construction 57th Street. So talk about the themes in your art, Sam. I know you like themes.
Yeah. I realized thinking about this talk was a great opportunity to kind of contemplate, different periods in what I was doing. And I realized that for maybe the first 20 years of working in New York, this may be hard for you to believe, but I wasn't at all conscious of any kind of theme. I was kind of going on automatic pilot. I just had so many things that I was interested in that I loved doing, and I was attracted to subject matter, you might say intuitively, certain kinds of things. But after 20 or 25 years, I began to realize that there was a theme that was evolving. And the theme, it has to do with I was trying to avoid saying man-made, because human-made is what one should say.
Or built.
Now. Built, so built structures of shelter or protection or of motion, of transport. Okay, so these are all man-made structures. And then another phase you could describe would be these man-made forms of structures in relation to nature. But in many of these, it's just the man-made forms of shelter or of motion, and then so some of the things were those things in relation to nature, and then I've done a lot of things of just nature by itself. So what I've realized is that I was dealing with protection versus exposure, or the inner and the outer. So there's a kind of like a vast inclusion of what the human race does. They build structures to be protected and to be sheltered, and then they go out into nature, or they in many different ways exploring. But the man-made structures are like safety, and the going out into the world of the universe, exploration, and sometimes danger.
So now, how did you come to the realization that you wanted to make shaped paintings different than just a square rectangle? What instigated that?
In graduate school, I got restless with a rectangle, so I started.
That could be the name of something. Restless with a rectangle.
So what I did was I started putting appendages off the rectangle, just to make them a little more dynamic or something. And so I was just kind of playing around with that. And then the first really large shape, big shape painting I did was a rectangle, and then with these big, it was of a two-family house from Staten Island. And this was also, I guess I did take a picture. I had a little teeny picture of this house. But then there was shrubbery and driveway, and there was a roof, of course, that was triangular shaped. So the rectangular painting was the kind of core of the house. There was a triangular piece, there was a separate piece on the top, and then there were these kind of wedge-like shaped things that were shrubs and driveway. And so then we maybe see, it's in the loop, the painting of the shrub with the hedge.
Yeah.
That was actually the first completely shaped one from conception. It was very clumsy, actually, the structure, but
Well, they've gotten very intricate
yeah.
now. I mean, this is amazing. It's all cut out, and then you wrap the canvas around the cutout.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine doing that. Just
Well, people say, how do you do that? It's just like upholstery or something, you just
upholstery.
You just learn how to do it and you do it.
Okay.
But the main part of the stretcher is 3/4 inch birch plywood, and it's anywhere from like 2.5 to 4 inches, depending on how big the painting is. And then I make a little rim on the outer edge to hold the canvas off the main part of the stretcher. And if the edges are straight, I just use quarter round from the lumberyard. And if they're very intricate, then I cut them out of, again, a 3/4 inch plywood with a jigsaw and round them off, just like a quarter round.
You make it sound easy, but it's very intricate. It's not easy. And the effect is pretty exciting.
I don't understand. I thought these were flat.
They are flat. She said, I don't understand. I thought these were flat. They're flat. They look three-dimensional.
But they're an inch and a half thick.
They're flat,
Almost
yeah.
all the big shape paintings are an inch and a half thick. That's 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood. But this image here is totally flat.
So you paint the canvas first and then
No. With these shaped ones, I do a full-size drawing first, and I use that as a pattern or a template to make the shape stretcher. And then I stretch raw cotton duck. I use cotton is what my preference. And gesso the cotton duck, and then I transfer that full-size drawing onto the gesso canvas. So
What size is that? Could you tell us the sizes as you go along with some of the pieces?
Yeah, sure. The question is to find out what size they all are.
yeah,
What's this size?
it's about this is about this big. It's not that big. Some of these things are big, but this one here is about this big.
It's just very intricate. Okay, we'll go to the next one. This is called balsa model. Whoops. What am I doing? There it is.
Oh, okay.
You have called yourself a metaphysical realist. What does that mean?
A lot of people have asked me that. Yeah, I've used kind of metaphysical is like beyond the physical. So it's conjuring up many, you might say, ideas or feelings that are beyond just the physicality of the
Okay.
object.
Yeah.
So it's involving memory, it's involving feelings, it's involving, yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I love that. That's what is poetic about your work, I think.
Wow.
And I want to read this quote. You said, "The longer I make art, the more I realize that childhood experience is a source for the creative process. Toys triggered elaborate fantasies. Putting pieces of wood on cardboard together to make a boat, a plane, a train, or a farmyard was magical. I'm trying to recapture some of that wondrousness when an object, structure, or place becomes a symbol, a metaphor, a feeling, something more than just the sum of its physical properties."
Did I write that?
You did! Doesn't that sound good? I love that quote.
Well,
Are there any questions about this?
this one here is about this size, and you all know what it is? Yeah, it's the fuselage of a Piper Cub, and it's balsa. And so that's what I was talking about in terms of childhood hobbies, of making things. And the thing that there's a lot of parts to this, because on those sheets of balsa, you have these shapes stamped into them, and they're all basically abstract shapes. And so you've got these abstract pieces and shapes, and you put them together and you make something that's recognizable and functional. But the reason I had the building under construction first and then this one is that they represent like two kind of periods of life, because usually when you're young you make models. I did cardboard punch outs of farms and trains, and interestingly, the cardboard punch out that I did, there are pages in these books. You either they're perforated or you cut them out. Again, abstract shapes, and then you make up something recognizable. I love the cardboard cutout train that I made, which becomes three-dimensional. Much more, for some reason, than most kids liked electric trains. But for some reason, I preferred the paper, the cardboard. It was just some kind of magic.
The poet in you. Yeah, it's magical. And it's something you made. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any,
Purposeful, the skull-like aspect of this, did you think of that
was it purposeful, the skull-like
aspect of it?
aspect of it?
And what definition are you using for skull?
It looks like a skull.
Human skull?
No, not necessarily, no.
Or a rowing skull? Or
No, an animal skull.
animal skull?
Oh.
Okay. This is what I love.
Yeah.
I love this kind of, association, because so many people have different kinds of associations.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody has ever mentioned a skull for this. But
That's
but
good.
I can see it. I see what you. But the thing about this is that it's almost featherweight, and obviously the previous building is massive and extremely, just a powerful form. So I love these kind of contrasts of.
Okay, we're going to look at the wall of your studio, and I want to give you this so you can point to things. Now we get to see a cutout here.
Yeah, I get to use one of these pointers. So this is a stretcher
So now you see how he makes it.
from the front before the canvas is stretched on it. And it's of a painting that I may or may not ever finish. I don't know if I may, but I may not. I don't know.
What's
But-
behind it, Sam?
It's an image of a boat with its reflection, which I've just I cut out and I glued onto plywood. So that's what that is. So all those little things are little teeny wave things under the boat. It's upside down. The boat is the other way around.
Sam, why wouldn't you finish? What altered the process?
The question is, why wouldn't you finish it?
Yeah, I've got so many ideas that in recent months I've started drawings. I made full-size drawings of about maybe 8 or 10 images that I was interested in, but I couldn't find one that gave me enough challenge or interest to start working on the stretcher and get into it. I've just recently done that, but I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be. But this one, I'll tell you what this might be, but it's of Route 220. It's a road, a curving road that goes up and down like this, with tree shadows and it's.
Yeah, what are you talking about, Sam? Point to it. There, that
I'm talking about this shape.
That's going to be Route 220.
If it happens, but
If
so
he
it had just been tarred with a new surface, and I love new surfaces on roads, and it had a beautiful bright center double line strip, you know, so it was like the yellow and the black, and it was kind of bluish black, and I may do it. I might get to it. I'm getting excited about it just as I'm talking about it.
I think you're going to do it.
Let's see what. Over here, this is a painting I did, a crayon drawing I did when I was 8. It's pilgrims on a ship. And this one right here is a painting of a stone barn in France that I did when I was 9, 1 year later. Wow. And I went to this French-American camp, and there was this very pretty young arts and crafts instructor who took us kids out into the field and had us work from life, and that was really exciting to do work from life, so that was a big jump. There's so many things I could talk about in this picture that, these are ideas. These are all ideas here, idea photographs. This is a finished little painting which is going to Mariana, so Kim and David, close friend.
What's the red thing?
Oh,
Red?
yeah, what's the red thing?
Okay, this and this are a new branch of my work, which I got into about 3 or 4 years ago, which is scraps left over from making shape stretchers. I've always loved abstraction, but I've never figured out a way to get into it, you might say honestly, or really just really being right for me, because I'm basically a realist or representational artist. But over the years, I've looked at these scraps that I've had left over, and I thought, geez, those are kind of interesting. I could not think up those shapes. They're just leftover shapes. But so I got the idea of using them as abstract images and putting one color on them. And
Do you put canvas on them, or are
no,
those
this
just
is
painted
this is
wood?
right on
Yeah.
wood. This one right here is a leftover piece from the first image we looked at of the building under construction. it's a residue or leftover piece. And the color that, it's a black, but I had it left over for a great aunt of mine was a very wonderful painter, and I inherited some of her paints. And so this tube was peach black. And I love the name, and I love the idea of the warm black, and so I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with this peach black? So that was it. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to grab the clicker from you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. Elevated highway, curve from below. Now, this is the kind of thing that you look at and you think, what is that? And I love that mystery. So, you also, words are important to you. You said that you have certain words that you really,
Yeah.
that mean a lot to you.
These are kind of obvious artistic words that we're all after. Wholeness. And, I think we want every painting that we do to have a wholeness within it. In other words, a balance. I'm just trying to think of, I've got things written down on a piece of paper, but I'm not even going to look at it.
Okay, but how does that apply to this one, would you think? I mean,
Well, this is also from the East River Drive, or the FDR Drive, in New York on the Lower East Side, and it's elevated, and I was walking along under it, and there was this curve, and I don't know, I just put my hand up or something, and I saw this beautiful curve, and you can just barely see the structural supports underneath it. It's all iron, and it's quite old. It's not a new highway at all. But
how big?
This is 99 inches tall, this painting.
When? What date? Do you know? Would be in the 70s? Or?
No, let's see. Well, late 70s, around 78, something like that.
A realist version of Ellsworth
I'm very
Kelly.
aware of Ellsworth Kelly, and that's a great point. It's a great point, because some of his, particularly when he'd come out with a new shape, they were spectacular to me. I remember going into a show at Castelli when he was in the townhouse up in the 70s, and there was a show of Kelly's of these white columns that were self-standing with straight edges and then a curved edge. They were like 8 feet tall. It was in a small room, and they just were incredible to me. I thought they were incredibly beautiful. So Kelly is,
Big influence.
definitely an influence.
He wasn't doing any trompe l'oeil.
He sure wasn't.
But
He sure wasn't.
But he-
Trompe l'oeil was not a modernist. That's another thing about doing trompe l'oeil, is that it was very non-modernist. So I was like in very, dangerous territory in terms of getting taken seriously as an artist. But I wanted to try to see if I could go back and forth, and so that's what I did.
makes the paintings very exciting, I think.
This
What?
what's that?
Where is this painting now?
Where is the painting now?
There's actually a blemish on it, so which I don't think I can repair, so I'm keeping it because I do love this painting. But this was in the show at CMCA, and Suzette and I were hanging it, and I kept getting Suzette is here, and I kept saying, Suzette, could we put it a little higher, a little higher, a little higher? And I pushed her a little too far, I think, but she put it quite a bit way above eye level, but I was really pushing. Suzette, where are you?
She's here. I saw her come in.
Yeah.
Where are you, Suzette? Right here.
Oh, okay. So Suzette,
It was a wonderful show.
and she was just terrific, but it was it was dynamic trying to figure out how to hang it, wasn't it, Suzette? Yeah. So I love the idea of the viewers having to look up at things or
I have a
down
question.
at things.
How did you get that peak? That is so pointed. Is that canvas over that?
Yep, it's
Yeah,
canvas.
wow.
Yeah. So this is a little more than an 8-foot. So I used 4x8 plywood. So I had to just glue on a little extra triangle at the very top, which to this day it wiggles a little.
Why do you paint on the canvas rather than just on the wood?
Why do you paint on canvas rather than just the wood?
I love the feeling of cotton duck. It's just a thing. Wood is harder and more rigid, and of course many people love linen. I tried linen, but it just wasn't for me. It was number 12 cotton duck is what I used.
Do you have a problem at all when you move further along on a piece, knowing being able to give it up if it's not going in the right direction because of the complexity?
Do you have a problem finishing something if it gets too complex?
Not involved with it. I would think like it gets harder and harder as you move along to say this is not working.
Oh yeah, sure. I've had a fair number of things that didn't work. Yeah, I mean maybe a quarter of the things I've started, which isn't.
Wow,
I
that's a lot.
guess that's.
Yeah, it's a lot. And after investing all that time in it.
Yeah, but that's true of
Yeah.
all artists, isn't it? I mean,
Probably, yeah.
did that answer your question? Yeah.
Okay, here we have F, admiration with center button, husband. Humor, a little humor.
Yeah. When I first started working, I was also quite influenced by the pop artists. And my favorite pop artist was Oldenburg. I liked Wesselman too, and I liked them all. The kind of battle between the various movements, like the pop art coming up after abstract expressionism, was fascinating to watch. But so some of my early things had a somewhat pop quality. This came out of a Sears and Roebuck catalog, and that was the name of this item. It was F, admiration with center button, so it's actual size, and it has a little flap on the back. It sits on the floor, and so this, I would say, is, and it was somewhat sarcastic on my part, kind of poking fun at middle class a little bit. But I've come to realize over the years that this has a lot of stuff going on in it that I hadn't really thought of when I was doing it. But humor is definitely part of it. And
Like what? What else is going on?
I'm going to let you all figure that out.
Can you speak about the texture? I'm really convinced there's satin there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
texture he wants to know about.
Just paint with a little varnish.
Just paint.
Yep.
There's a shadow there that really gives it a three-dimensional quality. Is the shadow part of the photograph, or is it actually part of the?
It's part of the photograph
Is
because
the shadow part of the photograph?
it's photographed with a white backdrop, a white piece of paper under it, and then behind it, and that's the shadow that's on the paper.
You like everyday objects. You find richness in everyday objects a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
Yeah, every day I am so attached to the visual world and the tactile world of the real physical world. I'm not much for virtual reality. I am not much for the digital world. It's not for me. I get real, I have, there's one story I should tell before I forget about just my attachment to objects. When I was around 4 or 5, I was pulled around on a sled by one of my siblings, and for some reason, that being pulled on that sled was very implanted in my mind. And years and years and years later, I thought it was maybe an antique sled, because it had sides and it had a back. And it was, I just remember being wrapped in a blanket, I think. Oh, this is Mike, sorry. And it was an absolutely beautiful memory. So many, many years later, I was driving through northern New Jersey in this town. I tried drawing it in journals and stuff. I couldn't pin it down. I went by this antique shop, and on the porch was this sled, exact copy of this sled. And it was a little American Flyer with sides and a back. And I bought it. And whenever I look at this little sled, I have this flood of memory. It's just extremely fortunate and beautiful feeling that I have when I see that sled. So that's the kind of attachment that I have to a lot of things.
Could you say what that feeling was?
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia. No, it's pervasive. It's like a whole. Joy is one thing, and it's a fullness, a beauty, a happiness, memory, nostalgia, all kinds of stuff. That one object probably has more emotional resonance for me of any other object, but there are a lot of other objects too.
Yes.
Outer edge, it looks like the piping is dimpled in there. Now, is that paint, or do you actually make little indents and then wrap around it?
It's all paint. It's just
The question
it's an
is,
illusion.
are those ripples paint, or are they actual indentations in the...
On the outer edge.
Yeah, on the outer edge.
That's just an illusion of the
That's the trompe
painted-
l'oeil.
Yeah, that's a trompe l'oeil.
This is a trompe l'oeil master here. Okay, this is called Breakwater Matinicus. I have a quote. You say, "For me, space and forms within it represent freedom and fullness and provide a medium for the imagination to roam." I love that quote.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the breakwater on Matinicus Island. And it's not a very long breakwater, but I walked out to the end of it and just looked back, and it just really grabbed me. But I did a lot of editing. I took trees out, I took a house out, I changed the shape a little bit of the land over here so that it would be balanced. This is a balance thing, wholeness, making it work. But the power for me of these granite rocks and the marks made by the drills and stuff, it's a mixture to me of chaos and order. It's abstract.
Is that why it's on a rectangle?
It's not on a rectangle, actually. The photograph is deceptive because the painting, this is actually a little bit of a close-up of the painting. There's a little bit on the edges of it, but on the top above the kind of ruffled edges wall, and these two wedges here are wall.
So it's cut out.
It's a
kind
shape
of-
painting, yeah.
A shaped painting.
And it's about 60 inches by about this size.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do this?
How long did it take?
I never know. I never keep records of how long it takes. I usually have 3 or 4 things I'm working on at the same time, but I did this in Hoboken. I had a studio in Hoboken when I was doing this, and it might have been a year on and off, working other things too.
Okay. This is called Two Urban Towers, Midtown Manhattan. and you said you found drama in forms and space.
Yeah.
So this is very dramatic, I think.
Yeah, this painting I think it's over 100 inches tall. And when you walk across from east to west on the south side of 57th Street, again, this building on 57th Street, you will see, I think around Fifth Avenue or somewhere kind of in the middle of 57th Street, there is this building which comes to a point. It's just incredibly, and it's all, you know, glass and steel, so and very reflective. The title of this is Two Urban Towers, so it's one reflected in the other one, and it is so chic and slick and powerful. And these buildings they kind of scare me. All these tall buildings. I mean, it just represents a world of business and whatever that I'm at the opposite end of. The corporate world and so forth. But I am blown away by the forms, or the shapes of a lot of these buildings.
Did you have to calculate mechanically or, you know, to get the distances and those horizontal bars on that one?
This was
Perspective as you come down?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I had to measure and stuff. But this was from a photograph, as quite a few of these other buildings are also from. So I had the you know, just the proportions set up. What I do is I take a lot of pictures of something I'm interested in from a lot of different angles, and then I decide which one is just the right angle for what I want.
There, how do you, could you talk about generating the shape of the canvas?
Can you talk about generating the shape
The shape of the canvas after you've chosen
after you've
Yeah,
chosen the view?
well, the top part of it speaks for itself. It's just the shape of the building. This diagonal here is artificial. It's aesthetic. It's my choice to make it work with the other shapes and angles. And the same with the very bottom, that short section at the very bottom. That's an aesthetic choice, an abstract choice to make that shape on the bottom work with the shapes up above. Does that answer your question? Okay, so
what is it? A dynamic?
yeah. So
you
is
saying
this threatening then?
Humorous.
Humorous. Wow, that's good. I mean, I never thought of this as being humorous.
Are you thinking that it could fall? That's why you like the dynamic? Uh-huh.
Not that it's not a building's gonna fall on me, but I think it's there's some humor, a tiny bit of humor.
Yeah.
It's very dramatic, and, no, I think it's just very powerful. I don't really mean that, I think it's really funny thing.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny that painting captures so perfectly for me the way I feel when I'm confronted with something that's just too big,
Yeah, good.
to be human.
Yeah,
Too
Yeah.
big to be human.
It's kind of like looking down into a canyon.
right. Oh, it is dizzying to look up at these buildings, particularly
true.
with clouds moving by and
Can you
stuff.
all
It's-
hear? Okay, can you repeat what she is saying, or I'll try to do it?
Yeah.
It's a dynamic effect, the way you have cut this building off, because it looks unstable, and it could fall on you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but she also said that there's a humorous element to it, I think.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find so fascinating is, I mean, how other people react to the same image, or, you know, what it does to them. Because my fascination is with what each person brings to the image. And, I mean, it may be scary to some, and it may be delightful to others, and you bring your own experience to, yes.
It seems to me, I mean, so often when you're in a cityscape like that, there are lower structures
Yeah,
the angle of the lower structure.
that's, yep,
Obscuring the bottom of that.
yeah.
The way it's cut off is evoking the structures that are underneath this structure, he's saying.
That earlier painting that we showed where you had these sort of cubic things, it evoked to me that there are a series of buildings.
Right. That very first image that we showed is exactly that. All those diagonals were other buildings right in front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one is a little more arbitrary in these two sections right here, but yeah, you're right.
I'm going to have to move on because we're never going to get through all these. Okay? And I want to get to the part where you're talking about the stuff you went through. Okay.
Yeah.
This is Bayer Ship, or Bayer Ship.
Bayer Ship
Bayer
Ledge.
Ship Ledge.
I've done a lot of paintings of islands, and everybody says, "Could you do me an island?" Because you know, they're very popular, and I love islands. But this is an early one, and it was probably a treeless ledge at one point. It's right off Otter Island in Muscongas Bay, and it's only about this big. It was in the show at CMCA.
You said the formal and material elements of painting, color, form, composition, and paint, while critical to the success of a work, play a supporting role to personal expression. You're all about personal expression.
Well, that's my position, yeah, although that's kind of, again, kind of an anti-modernist statement, because modernists, contemporary artists or modernists feel like the material itself, there's two ways of using the word realist. There was a show at the Museum of Modern Art many years ago called something like The Real. It may have been just something as simple as The Real. And it was abstract shapes, and the color and the paint and the surface and the shape was it. There was no reference to other things, and these artists felt very strongly that there was no illusion there. This was the real, the art, you know. To me, all the physical, but as you just read, all the physical aspects of it are at the service of an idea or a feeling. So that's a kind of romantic, old-fashioned
Well, it comes
idea.
back and forth. It comes into style and it goes out of style and so forth and so on. I mean, I think that's the way art is. It's a continuum.
Yep,
Yeah.
true.
I have a question. Is this a painting on a rectangular white canvas?
Is this a painting on a rectangular canvas? No.
It's a cutout piece. Again, when I do small ones, I do the painting on a maybe a rectangular piece of cotton duck that I have stapled to the wall, and then I cut it out with scissors.
So all of these paintings are just the shapes and the white background just after the slide?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the white background, though, to me is very important because it kind of represents air and space and separation from the rest of the world. I mean, it's isolating these shapes and these objects so you can kind of contemplate them by themselves. So the wall acts as air and space and separation, psychological separation.
Oh, wait just a minute. Oh, go ahead.
How do you decide on the scale, how large or how small it'll be, and how does that play into the sort of the power of the image?
That's a really
How
good...
do you, okay, we
Yeah.
need to repeat. How do you know what size to make these these cutouts? And what was the rest of it?
And how does that play into the power that they carry?
And how does that play into the power that they carry?
I've often thought that there's an ideal size for all images. You know, in other words, if you think it out. But I've changed my mind about that, actually. This could probably be interesting in several sizes, and I've begun to do things like maybe 3 sizes. I do that sometimes, just to see how they feel different sizes. But this was about... Jim, you had a question.
Yeah, back there.
Well, it seems like there's a white line that's
It looks like there's a white line where? Oh, behind the trees. Yeah, that's just, I think, in the
That's the screen.
screen. By the way, I want to tell you that Damon Liebert up in the control room put these images on the screen, and he did a masterful job, didn't he?
Yeah.
He really did. It's not
Really.
easy to show this work really
Yeah.
well. Thank you. I'm going to move on, okay?
Okay,
Hate to move on, but we're going to do it. Okay, now,
okay. Well, most people know me as kind of a friendly type person, but
you're not?
these are self-portrait drawings done over a 30-year period. That was 68, and this one down here was 98. That's 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one over here, I do tons of drawing. I've done thousands and thousands of drawings. And a lot of them are very small. I like doing just small sketches. And they're kind of a contrast to the big paintings of just doing thumbnail sketches. So the one on the bottom left here, I had just seen a Lucian Freud etching show. And it was just fantastic etchings of Lucian Freud, so I was kind of inspired by that. But these kind of reflect the artist's inner tensions and intensity, I guess.
Struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also my different, my hippie period and my kind of cool period and. This one down here, this is going to be a little awkward to talk about because I've never talked about it in public before, but this one is kind of more than intense, the one on the bottom right here. I've struggled with depression on and off all my adult life, and around midlife, I had a big midlife crisis and changed a lot of things, and I was kind of exhilarated for a while, and then I went into a deep depression. And I have had periodic depressions ever since then, on and off, and it was labeled chronic depression. I would call it, I would think that it would be more realistic to call it periodic depressions, because the times in between are wonderful. And but I don't think depression is talked about enough. And I've found, from the vantage point I'm at right now, that depression can have benefits, but it has to be faced and dealt with to get through it. It's deep depressions are incredibly powerful, and so I worked with psychiatrists and with talk therapists, and I went on a medication, which many artists fear doing because they think that they're going to lose their creativity, but I found that was not the case.
Sam, in the periods when you were not depressed, were you still on the medicine?
I tried going off 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times, and it didn't work out. Mm-hmm. So I realized that I have to stay on medication for the rest of my life, which is fine with me. The side effects are not that, I really haven't had terrible side effects. And
how does it affect your art?
It affects it a lot because when I come out of a depressive episode, it's like being reborn. It's like starting all over in a way and just seeing everything new and fresh. So it's, in that way, it's a gift. If you can get through these periods, you see things as if you're seeing the world for the first time almost, and it's.
Paint and draw while you're depressed.
Usually.
Do you paint and draw while you're depressed?
Usually all I can do is drawings, and they're pretty shaky, but I try to draw some. Yeah. The longest, what I feel that they are is they're growth crises. They're stages of life crises, and a lot of us artists are, we're kind of sensitive, very sensitive, or oversensitive, but the idea that depression is a disease of weakness is not the case. Abraham Lincoln and Hemingway,
Van Gogh.
and Van Gogh is the epitome of, Lincoln and Hemingway were not weak people, but it's partially genetic, it's partially circumstantial, and it's a huge challenge, and you've got to work at getting through it, but it has its benefits. So I think it's helped me as far as my painting is concerned. It kind of stretches the soul, I think. I mean, dark and light, the contrast of opposites. A lot of these contrasts: light, heavy, dark, dark and light. Just different feelings. I get different feelings when I'm in different places, and when I get different feelings from different kinds of objects. They put off kind of good vibes, or they put off bad vibes, or destructive vibes. So you become sensitive to that sort of stuff and aware of it, and it just kind of deepens your whole experience as long as you can get through it.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists would sympathize, because artists are very sensitive. So I think more people than admit it can be depressed and chronically depressed. So I think it takes great courage to admit it and talk about it.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I want to say thank you
I-
for sharing your very personal experiences.
She's thanking him.
That is a beautiful gift
Yeah.
that you've given all of us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving this gift. Yeah.
The thing is, I did some research just looking into depression and suicide kind of research, and I ran into an early researcher whose name I cannot seem to remember. I can't pull it up, but he said a couple of things just reading about his work, which were very indicative of how people can help other people, even if they don't know what to do, or they can't get too involved. He met a woman, this was just before or during the Second World War. He met a woman that he went out with a few times, maybe 5 or 6 times. And they had not gotten that close, but they liked each other. And then he went off to war. And they started writing back and forth. And he said the anticipation of letters from her were incredibly valuable. And so he started up this, in his practice, this idea of, for one thing, not being completely impersonal the way many doctors or psychiatrists or therapists feel is important. Being somewhat personal, but once people are gone out of the therapy or whatever, writing them a note, like every couple of months. I think he did this with many of his clients that had moved on, some of them in really, really rough shape, even after the therapy. And he learned through feedback that these notes were just thinking of you, were really valuable, and help people. So there are a lot of different ways. If you know people that are depressed, there's certain, you figure out what you can handle yourself, and just do what you can, and just a note might be really valuable. Another thing that I remember from reading about him was this is very dramatic. So he had a client who went out on the San Francisco, the great, what's the big Golden Gate Bridge, and jumped off it and committed suicide. And they went back, the police and he went to his apartment, and there was a suicide note that said, "If someone smiles at me, I won't jump." And nobody smiled at him. So he
Talk
jumped.
about Oliver Sacks a little bit.
Yeah, this is heavy stuff that we're.
Well, you
Yeah.
don't have to get into
Yeah.
it too deeply,
Okay.
unless you want to.
How many of you have read Oliver Sacks?
Look at all the
I knew
hands.
I knew there were going to be a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that Oliver Sacks writes is fantastic about people that have challenges of all kinds. I just finished reading one called "Anthropologist on Mars," written by him. It's like 7 or 8 different people, and he's his most very early famous one was "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat."
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
You didn't mention that one. I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's just striking, just stunning, fascinating stuff. So any of his books, he is a very special person, Oliver Sacks.
Because he looks at every human being as worth whatever the person is expressing.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with anyone. And look, a lot of ancient tribes and things saw people who we would call retarded or some term like that, and they looked at them as special people and treated them that way, as holy people. So it depends on the culture, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
fascinating.
William Styron's
That's
I
amazing.
sure have.
William Styron's
Yeah.
book on depression, really,
What's
really
the title of that, David? It's something invisible.
Darkness,
Darkness visible.
visible.
Darkness visible.
And how people try to help people who are depressed, and it doesn't help at all. I mean, the things that really are needed
Yeah.
are empathy, and that's it. You know,
And
you
then
can't
doing
help
what you can. I mean, you can't do what you can't do. So
No.
if you can think of any little thing that you might be able to do that might be helpful, do it. But another great book is a book called Solitude by Anthony Storr. Have any of you read that?
Somebody over here.
I just read it for the second time. I read it like 25 years ago, and I just read it again. And it is a gem, I think, because it discusses a lot of the stuff that we've just been talking about. He talks about the importance of solitude, of solitariness, and how important it is for our mental health and our time to contemplate stuff and think about stuff and not just be overwhelmed by all the information and all the action that's constantly
That we have
surrounding
today,
us.
yeah.
It's a great book. I recommend that.
Wow, okay, I'll move on. This is an eastern spruce and a western fir of some kind. I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
This is a pine tree.
Oh, sorry. Eastern pine.
It's called, anyway, I saw this on Mount Desert Island on a rainy day when I was with my parents and a friend. We were going to some museum or some place and it's on Sargent Drive, and Somme Sound is right behind it. And I saw this as we were approaching it, and there was something about it. That little teeny negative, this is a rectangular, both of these are rectangular paintings. So they're not shade paintings. And the sky it isn't seen very accurately in these photographs, but that little thin bit of white next to the trunk and the branch was what really got to me about this, the positive negative shapes. And the fact that this had been obviously really ravaged by weather and so forth, but had been taken care of and cropped and culled and taken care of by people that, it turns out this is a fairly well-known tree. But I got the idea of trying to find a tree in the West Coast that would be kind of a contrast to this tree. So I went out to San Francisco and I drove around for a week and found this tree. And they're both examples of just of trees that have been through a lot. And this is cypress. I think it's cypress.
Oh, is it?
No, cedar. Is it what?
Cedar, it looks
Forgetting-
like. It
yeah.
looks like the cedar.
Yeah, I think it's a cedar. And I found it right in the maintenance area of the Golden Gate Park, among many others that look like this. And I just knew this was the one that. So I had a show in Boston that was contrasting these two trees. There were two paintings of each tree, and they were facing the other tree in this square room at Uzersky Gallery in Boston.
By the way, if you want to see Sam's work, you can go to the Carlbeck Gallery up in Rockland. Sidewalk and nature viewing platform, bridge to St. Augustine. That was on the postcard that you got, some of
Yeah.
you.
So, this is a bridge going from the outer strip across it might be the inland waterway or maybe marshes or something, over to St. Augustine in Florida. And I just eliminated the highway because I was interested in the sidewalk and the nature viewing platform and the relationship of the two of them. One thing a painting like this does for me is that it represents freedom, because when you're depressed, you're just shut down. You don't really feel like moving. Things are not just alive. And when you come out of it and you become active again, just the act of walking across a bridge like this is a special thing. So this is just kind of going off into space, into some other area.
Interesting.
It's about this big, this painting. It's not that big. It's about like this.
And the interesting relationship between the two walkways.
Yeah. Yeah, the color of the nature viewing platform and the color of the sidewalk, to me, were a very nice balance.
All right, this next one is a painting, a rectangular painting.
Yeah, and that's
Storm
also not
on the
very
air.
big. That's about this size.
Oh, is it? I thought
Yeah.
it was big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This could be big too, but so this is storm from the air at dusk or sunset, just barely a little bit of dusk, I guess. And the power of a storm like this, you contrast that to the little pillow painting, and these are like the two opposite ends of the spectrum of powerful, potentially destructive nature, and then that little pillow, which seems just so. So that's kind of a big range that I love the idea of going back and forth with.
And you're above the clouds.
You're above the clouds. This is one of the few paintings which is not something that I photographed myself. I got it out of a magazine, like a Time magazine, like 30 or 35 years ago, and I just kept it. It just was so powerful to me, and then finally I did a painting of it, and I hope the photographer is not in the audience.
Okay, here's this one. You're quite well known for this painting.
Well,
This cutout.
yeah. This is 12 feet long, 12 feet across. Yeah. And it's a work trailer from the Manhattan Bridge, on the Manhattan side of the Manhattan Bridge on Canal Street. And this was an early painting. I moved into a loft in 1970 on the Bowery, and it was a top floor loft, and it was big walls. It was very exciting. So I started doing a lot of these big shape things, and this was one of them. And my mother, years later, my mother said to me, Sam, why would you ever want to do a painting of a trailer?
As any mother would say. Oh, that's funny. I want to say, Dan Caney, who you've heard me, if you've been here before, quote, because I think he's so good, said about your work, instead of packing the form into the shape, as happens on the canvas, Sam Cady unpacks the form from the shape, inverting the primacy of the shape. It's an exciting effect, and it is not a trivial thing to make or to experience. You get so much front-end fun with Cady's paintings that you don't feel the need to look further. But if you do, they only get better. It's a nice quote. Okay, here's the Japanese island.
Yeah, this is from an area called Matsushima, and this is kind of the equivalent of our area here in Japan. There are these bamboo poles all over this harbor, and I think they raise oysters from the bamboo poles. It's very picturesque. And this is, I think it was late morning, it was a little breeze, and I just loved this. I loved that place. And it was a very, very different kind of rock from what we have. It was soft rock that got eroded relatively quickly from the ocean, and so it had kind of a skin.
What size is it?
This is 5.5 by 8 feet. It's I think it's somewhere in the Hyatt at Logan, in the one of the conference rooms or something like that. They bought this and another one.
Sam, why did you include the water in this one as opposed to that other island that was kind of free floating?
That's a good question.
Why didn't you cut it out? Is that what you're saying?
You said the sky and the water were distractions on the earlier one.
Yeah.
So why did you leave them in
Why
this
did
one?
you put it in here?
Because, for one thing, the blue of the sky was really valuable in relation to the colors for this painting for me, played against the kind of ochres and yellows and stuff. And the background you can't really see many poles in this photograph. This isn't a great picture, but there are lots of poles in the surrounding area. The color, I like the water color. Sometimes they just are better as rectangles because I need to make use of the color and the space around them.
And you said, I think this is a great quote too, I would like to hypnotize viewers into a contemplative reverie of their own.
I don't have big aims, hopes, do I?
But I think you do it.
when we work, when we artists work, I think we're somewhat hypnotized, ourselves. We're in a different zone, and sometimes you feel like you're a medium for something else. Mm-hmm. But I would ideally like to have the viewer be kind of transported into the image and just kind of be in a kind of reverie looking at it. That would be an ideal.
This is one of Katahdin. We all know that.
That's Knife Edge from the Knife Edge. And
I'm going to zip through so we get to the end.
It's small. It's about this size.
Okay, this is called Backyard Woodpile. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, this is significant. Significant to me because my father, who was a military business person and was no nonsense, and was one of my toughest critics, told me he thought this was a masterpiece, which was mystifying to me because it's a messy wood pile and there's a lot of junk underneath it, and he was very, very tidy and neat. But this was a very exciting painting to do. It came from a yard on Matinicus Island that was a riot of objects. It was so funny. There were like flagpoles and birdhouses and just all kinds of objects helter-skelter in this yard, and this wood pile was in it. And this painting, originally the shape, because the shape changed a lot here. Originally there was a little spruce tree just to the right of the wood pile, and there was none of the lower part of this painting. And I started painting on the spruce tree, and it just kind of died on me. It just was no good. So I had to rethink it. So what I ended up doing was cut the spruce tree away, even though this is a shaped stretcher, and add the lower part, because I found the lower part to be really interesting abstractly, a variety of colors, and it was a lot of fun. It was just playful and fun. So,
It's so successful.
so there's a seam that goes, you may see that seam
Yeah.
right in the middle there where I just added it on.
It's just so dynamic, the shape, and then the trompe l'oeil mess inside, you know? It's neat and messy all at the same time.
Thank you. Good. That's about this. It's about this tall, like this.
Okay, I want to know if anybody knows what this is. Do you recognize what it is? Yeah. Stairway in a hotel.
You got it.
Yeah.
But so the title of this is Descending a Staircase. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
Marcel Duchamp. Yeah, where's the nude?
Well, I didn't say nude descending the staircase. I just said descending the staircase. So I kind of fantasized that this was what the nude saw. But the fact that inspectors will this is a rug going downstairs in this Southwestern hotel in Indian country. And the fact that inspectors will allow a rug like this on stairs.
I mean, that is crazy, really.
It really amazes me.
I don't know how anyone got down there without falling.
And then there's this pattern, this Indian, kind of pseudo-Indian pattern on it. But the thing that surprised me that I ended up doing, originally the bottom was going to be horizontal, like this. But then I started looking at it, and the stairs above this were all tilted too much like this. So I said, I got to get these stairs more horizontal. So I brought the stairs more horizontal, and that made the bottom go down like this. So this painting has kind of ended up representing the time we're in right now. Of just being, you know.
A little out of kilter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of trompe l'oeil out there, yeah. A lot of trompe l'oeil.
It's getting toward the end. I hate to end this, but I want to ask you just a simple question. Why is art important?
Oh boy, you didn't tell me you were going to ask. I think it enriches life. It's what makes us human. All art. I mean, all the arts. It's like the best of what we are, no matter whether the art is powerfully tragic or very uplifting. It just elevates life to contemplate it and to think about your own lives in relation to it. It enriches it. I think it's invaluable. It's a short and not that good of an answer. But
It's a great answer. What would you most like to achieve in your art?
I think just to enrich life. I mean, I would also like to hypnotize people looking at my work, but I would say in general just enrich life and enable people to look at things with more outside of the box, kind of, you might say, and look at abstract qualities, look at light, light and shadow, look at shapes, look at many different aspects of things other than their just functional ones, to see how rich it is, and also see what kind of emotional sustenance you can get from the world outside of yourself in order to try to find meaning in life.
Very nice. Well, Sam Cady, it's been a true honor and pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. We're just at 8:30, so I guess, is that okay? We didn't get beyond, we made it through all these. You did a great job.